I want to begin by giving a small picture of how surprising and wonderful God has been to me. I am only 11 years old, living in a part of Pakistan where following Jesus is not easy, yet I have seen things that many adults never imagine. I have watched people fall on their knees in tears after prayer. I have seen sick mothers stand up strong again. I have seen families who once feared Christians open their doors and ask for prayer. Every time I witness these moments, something inside me becomes quiet and grateful, because I know it is not because of me, but because God is kind. Sometimes when I think about my journey, I still wonder how I reached this place. I was born into a strong Muslim background. My father was an imam, respected by many people. Our home was filled with Islamic books, prayers, and teachings. I grew up hearing verses being recited every morning. I knew the routines, the rules, and the expectations. But everything changed when I was 5, the year my father secretly began reading the New Testament that someone had given him. That same year he made a brave decision to follow Jesus, and our family had to leave our old city overnight. Now we live in another part of Pakistan, far from the people who once knew us. My father is now an evangelist, and he teaches me the Bible with the same seriousness he once used to teach me Islamic lessons. He always encourages me to love people, pray for them, and trust God even when life feels frightening. I never expected God to use me in any way, but little by little, he began opening doors. And soon, even at my young age, I found myself joining evangelism teams and speaking to people who once would not even allow a Christian near their home. When my father first told me the story of how he met Jesus, I did not understand everything, but I could feel how real it was to him. He said that while he was still an imam, he often felt an empty place inside him that nothing could fill. One night he prayed and asked God to show him the true path. He explained to me that during that time he kept sensing a quiet pull in his heart, as if someone was guiding him gently toward a new light. He told me that he began reading the New Testament secretly, and during those nights, he felt something warm and peaceful moving through him in a way he had never experienced before. Those days were difficult for him, because he feared what people would do if they ever discovered the change in his heart. He shared with me that one evening, while he was praying alone, he felt a strong impression inside him that he must take us away for our safety. He said that he knew God was leading him to leave everything behind and follow Jesus fully. That same week he gathered us quietly, and we left our city in the middle of the night. I was still young, but I remember how fast my heart was beating as we traveled. I knew something important was happening, though I did not yet understand its weight. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button and become part of this incredible faith-building community. This is more than just a platform. It's a family of believers who share their testimonies, support one another through trials, and celebrate victories together. When you subscribe, you're joining a space where faith is strengthened, hope is renewed, and prayers are answered. Let's continue to build each other up and witness God's faithfulness together in this journey of faith. After we settled in a new part of Pakistan, my father stopped being an imam and began sharing the message of Jesus. Life was not easy for him at first. Many people refused to listen, some avoided him, and some even threatened him. Still, every morning he woke up early to pray and read the scriptures. Watching him made me want to know Jesus too. He taught me from the Bible with the same energy he once used to teach me Islamic lessons. He always encouraged me to trust God and to believe that even young people can serve Him in meaningful ways. Little by little, my heart began to change, and I found myself wanting to walk the path my father had chosen. As I grew older, I started noticing how different our home felt compared to my early years. Before, our mornings began with Islamic recitations and routines that shaped every part of our day. But now, my father would wake me before sunrise, and we would sit together with a small Bible he kept wrapped in cloth to protect it. He taught me stories about Jesus, and each time he explained something, I felt a calmness that I could not describe. Even though I still remembered many things from my Muslim upbringing, something inside me began to lean toward the new life my father had embraced. I remember one morning clearly. My father and I were reading about Jesus healing the sick. After we finished, he looked at me and said he believed God would use me even while I was still young. I did not know what to say because I felt ordinary. But later that day, as I was alone in my room, I felt a deep sense of peace flow through my heart, as if someone was letting me know that he had plans for me beyond what I could see. I sat still for a long time because I did not want that feeling to end. It was in that moment that I began to truly desire to walk with Jesus. From that day on, I found myself more eager to learn. I asked my father many questions, and he always encouraged me to read and pray. He would often tell me that following Jesus meant loving people, helping the hurting, and trusting God even when life became hard. I took his words seriously and began joining him during small prayer gatherings. I was still shy, but each time I watched him talk to people, something in me grew. I began to feel a longing to serve God the way he did, and I prayed quietly for courage to do so one day. The first time my father allowed me to join the evangelism group, I felt nervous but excited. The team was small, and most of the members were adults who had been sharing the message of Jesus for years. They welcomed me kindly, but I could see the surprise in some of their eyes when they learned I was only 11. My father explained to them that I had a strong desire to learn and that I grew up with deep religious training, which helped me understand people from different backgrounds. Hearing him say this gave me confidence I did not know I had. During our first outreach together, we visited a quiet neighborhood where many Muslim families lived. I mostly stayed close to my father, watching how he spoke gently and respectfully. I noticed that people listened to him because he understood their culture and beliefs. After a while, one of the women approached me and asked if I was studying to become like my father. I told her that I wanted to follow Jesus and learn more about how to pray for people. She listened closely, and something in her expression softened. That day I realized that even at my age, God could use the little I knew. As the weeks went by, the evangelism team allowed me to participate more. Sometimes they asked me to speak to the children in the community, and other times they encouraged me to pray quietly for those who were sick or troubled. Each time I prayed, I felt a gentle strength inside me, almost as if God was guiding my words even though I did not have many. I began to notice that people were paying attention when I spoke. Some said there was something peaceful about my presence. I did not understand everything, but I kept asking God to teach me how to love people and serve them with sincerity. As I continued joining the team, something unexpected began to happen. People who saw me speaking or praying would often return later and ask if I could pray for them again. At first, this surprised me because I felt like I knew so little. But each time I prayed, I sensed a quiet assurance inside me, as if God was letting me know He was near. I learned that when I prayed with a sincere heart, God did what only He could do. My father always reminded me that results never came from human strength but from God's mercy, and that helped me stay humble. One day during an outreach, a group of Muslim women gathered around us out of curiosity. They did not seem hostile, but they watched carefully. My father encouraged me to speak, so I shared a simple message about how Jesus cares for the broken and listens to the prayers of those who come to Him sincerely. I kept my words gentle and clear. After I finished, one of the women asked if I could pray for her sister, who had been struggling with severe headaches for months. I felt my heart race, but I agreed. As I placed my hand carefully on her shoulder and prayed in a soft voice, I sensed a calmness filling the air. When we finished praying, the woman said she felt relief immediately. Her eyes widened as she moved her head around and touched her forehead in surprise. The women around her began whispering to one another. I stepped back quietly, unsure of what to say, but inside I thanked God for helping her. That moment taught me something important. God sees every small act of faith, even from a child, and He answers according to His will. After that day, people began talking about the unusual peace they felt whenever we came to pray. It made me more aware that God was slowly shaping a path for me, even though I was still learning. There was one outreach I will never forget. We visited a narrow street where many families lived in small houses close to one another. The evangelism team went from home to home, speaking kindly and offering prayer. As we approached one particular house, a man stepped out and told us his mother had been bedridden for weeks. She was an elderly woman who could barely sit up without help. He allowed us to come inside, though I could see hesitation in his eyes. My father prayed first, and then he asked if I wanted to pray as well. My hands trembled slightly, but I agreed. When I stepped closer to the woman, she looked at me with tired eyes. I felt a gentle stirring inside, as if God was reminding me that He cared for her deeply. I prayed simply, asking God to bring strength and healing according to His will. While I prayed, I sensed a soft warmth spreading through the room, not in a dramatic way, but in a peaceful and steady way that settled over everyone present. When we finished, the woman slowly moved her legs, and to our surprise, she pushed herself up to sit without assistance. Her son covered his mouth in shock, and tears filled her eyes as she whispered that she felt stronger than she had in a long time. The news spread quickly throughout the neighborhood. People came out of their homes, asking what had happened. Some followed us as we continued the outreach, wanting to see more or simply to hear about Jesus. I kept walking quietly, feeling humbled and grateful. I knew that only God could have done such a thing. That day, several families asked for prayer, and some even returned later to share that they wanted to learn more about Jesus. It was the first time I truly understood how God's kindness could open hearts in ways no words ever could. A few weeks after the healing of the elderly woman, our team returned to the same area because many families had asked us to come back. That afternoon, while we were speaking to a small group outside, a father approached us carrying his young daughter in his arms. She looked weak, and her breathing was shallow. He explained that she had been struggling with a severe fever for several days, and the medicine they had tried did not seem to help. He said he came because he heard what happened to the elderly woman and hoped that prayer might bring comfort to his daughter as well. I felt a mixture of fear and compassion, but my father encouraged me to pray. As I stepped closer, I felt a quiet calm settle over me, as if God was letting me know He was present. The father knelt down and held his daughter carefully while the others formed a small circle around us. I prayed softly, asking God to touch her body and give her relief. While I prayed, I sensed a gentle peace filling the moment. After a few seconds, the little girl opened her eyes fully and looked around with more strength than before. Her father touched her forehead and began to cry quietly because the heat of the fever had reduced almost instantly. He hugged her tightly as the people around began talking among themselves, amazed at what they witnessed. That moment opened many doors for conversations about Jesus. Families who were unsure before suddenly asked questions and invited us into their homes. Some said they felt something different whenever we prayed, something peaceful and comforting. A few of them later shared that they wanted to follow Jesus because they had seen His kindness through the healing of the little girl. I watched all of this quietly, still processing everything. I knew that God was doing something far bigger than anything I could understand. It made me want to grow deeper in faith so that I could serve Him with a pure and willing heart. After the two miracles, the neighborhood became more open to us than ever before. Families who once stood at a distance now walked toward us with hopeful expressions. Some invited us into their homes to pray, and others asked us to explain more about Jesus. I watched these moments with a full heart because I remembered how difficult it had been at the beginning. Now, people who had never allowed a Christian inside their home were offering us water, chairs, and quiet spaces to talk. I could see clearly that it was God who softened their hearts. During one outreach, we gathered in a small courtyard where several families were waiting. My father shared about God's love in a simple way, and I was asked to pray for those who wanted help. One by one, people stepped forward, some carrying children, others wiping tears from their faces. As I prayed for them, I sensed that same peaceful assurance I had felt many times before. It was not dramatic or loud, just a calm sense that God was listening. I saw mothers comforted, fathers encouraged, and children smiling again. The atmosphere was gentle, like a quiet wind passing through a dry place. Later that day, a group of families approached us together. They said that after seeing what had happened and hearing the message, they wanted to follow Jesus. They spoke honestly about their fears, but they also said that something in their hearts felt settled and peaceful. My father prayed with them while I stood beside him, watching the moment unfold. It felt almost unreal to see so many people turning toward Jesus in a place where Christianity was often hidden. As we left the neighborhood that evening, I felt deeply grateful, knowing that God was working in ways far beyond anything I could imagine. After those weeks of outreach, my heart began to change even more. I started waking up earlier each morning, wanting to pray and read the scriptures the way my father taught me. I felt a growing desire to understand Jesus better, not because of the miracles alone, but because of the peace I experienced whenever I prayed. Sometimes, as I sat quietly, I sensed gentle guidance in my heart, as if God was letting me know that He was with me and that He would continue leading me. These moments made me feel safe, even though we lived in a restricted place. Life outside the house remained uncertain. We had to be careful with where we went, who we spoke to, and how we shared our faith. But even with the challenges, I found myself becoming braver. I wanted to help people know God's love, especially those who felt hopeless. During some evenings, my father would talk about his own early days of following Jesus, and he reminded me that God guides each step of the journey. Hearing his stories helped me understand that being a Christian was not only about miracles but also about patience, trust, and walking with God every day. As I continued to grow, more people began noticing the changes in my life. Some would tell my father that there was something different about the way I spoke or prayed. Others said they wanted their children to grow with the same peace they saw in me. Each time I heard words like that, I felt both humbled and responsible. I knew I was still learning, and I did not want to rely on my own strength but on God's grace. I kept reminding myself that everything happening around us was only possible because God was drawing people to Himself. Looking back at everything, I realized that God has been shaping my life from the beginning. Even as a child, I have learned that following Jesus is not about age or strength, but about trusting Him and obeying what He shows you. I have seen miracles, yes, but the most important thing I have learned is how God's love can change hearts, bring peace, and guide people through difficult times. Every person I prayed for, every family that accepted Jesus, reminded me that God uses ordinary people, even a young boy like me, to do extraordinary things. I want to tell everyone who hears my story that your journey with God is personal and powerful. Pray regularly, study the Bible, and love others as Jesus teaches. You do not need to wait until you feel ready or old enough. God can use your faith and your small acts of courage to touch lives. Even in places where following Jesus is difficult, His presence brings hope, comfort, and miracles. Keep trusting Him, even when you cannot see the full path. He will guide you, strengthen you, and let you experience His peace in ways you never expected. Finally, I encourage believers to love one another and to continue walking closely with God. Be patient, be faithful, and remember that prayer is powerful. Study His Word, share His love, and serve those around you with a sincere heart. God can use each of us in amazing ways, just like He used my father and me, even in a place where following Him is not easy. Keep your heart open, trust in His guidance, and watch how He moves in your life and in the lives of others around you. God is faithful and He is always near.